Hello, and welcome to another episode of Mad Scientist Brewing Beer Education Series. In today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at malt. So, what is malt? Malt is a product that's prepared from grains, mostly barley, which is used in the process of making beer. Barley is the most commonly used grain for brewing, but other common grains used for malting include wheat, rye, and oats, as well as sorghum and millet for brewing gluten-free beers. Why is barley preferred for brewing beer? There's a few different reasons. The first is its starch content. Barley has a lot of starch that can be converted into sugars, which the yeast use to ferment into alcohol. The second is it has enzymes within itself that have the power to convert that starch into the fermentable sugars. Otherwise, the yeast would not be able to ferment that. The enzymes are proteins that assist in the chemical conversion of starch into sugar. Next, they have husks. Barley husks act as an excellent filter bed during the lautering process. Otherwise, the wort that comes out would be cloudy and full of gluey starches and sugars, and you may get a stuck sparge because everything would be too compacted together. Fourth is that they have dextrins, which are large unfermentable starch chains that give beer body and add to its mouthfeel. And lastly, it contains proteins that have just about the right amount of protein to give beer a good foam head and mouthfeel without causing too many other off flavors or making the beer ripe for spoilage. All right, so keeping the focus on barley, there are two varieties of barley that are named for the number of rows of kernels on each shaft. The first is two-row barley that is native to Europe and has larger kernels with lower protein and higher starch content. That provides a fuller, maltier flavor. These are traditionally used for German, British, and other continental beers. The other variety is six-row barley that is native to North America and contains more proteins and enzymes and provides a grainier flavor. This variety is often brewed with malt and grains that have low or no enzymes to convert the starches into sugar, such as with American lagers that utilize corn or rice. All right, now how malt is made. So I'm going to focus mostly on barley, I guess, for the conversation here regarding malt. But the process is the same for any grain that is being malted. So after it's harvested, barley grains are dried to about 16% moisture and stored. When it's time to go through the malting, the barley grains are soaked to 46% moisture. This begins the germination process and activates the enzymes in the kernels. The barley grains are spread out on a flat surface and allowed to sprout, being constantly turned to allow the kernels to cool and have access to oxygen. This continues until the green spout, called the acrospire, is the length of the kernel itself, and the enzymes have broken down as much starch as they can. After this, the malt is then either kilned, stewed, or roasted to terminate the germination, dry out the malt, and get the malt to the desired color through the Maillard process. So of the first of these, kilning is just the simple application of heat along with ventilation to dry the malt. Factors such as time, temperature, and ventilation ultimately affect color and flavor. For the base malts of beer that are going to be using, which is the bulk of the recipe, kilning is a very light temperature and just enough really to dry the malt out without giving it too much color or degrading the enzymes. Stewing involves kilning at 150 degrees Fahrenheit in a very moist environment, which activates the enzymes and converts all starches into fermentable sugar. Effectively, when you're stewing this malt, you're conducting a mash inside of each malt kernel. This is what's used to produce caramel or crystal malts, which can give it a sweet caramel flavor all the way up through like a dried fruit flavor. Lastly is the roasting process. Roasting involves putting the malt into a rotating drum or barrel and roasted and heated to create a dark color and roasty flavor. These are going to be your chocolate malts, your black malts, and roasted barley, which is similar to the black malt except that it's just the barley. It hasn't been malted at all. This was not really doable until the invention of the patent drum roaster. Because if you just had the malt over the flame or however else you were heating it prior to this, it would burn completely and you would not really be able to get anything good. So for a long time, uh, people who were making darker beers just used a larger quantity of brown malt in order to get the dark color. But now that we have the roasting technology available with this rotating drum dryer, we can use a larger quantity of pale, just kilned base malt and a little bit of roasted malt to achieve the same effect. All right, last note on malt color here. In the US, malt color is measured by degrees Lovibond, or standard reference measure. That's degrees L for Lovibond, or SRM, or standard reference measure. Europe uses the European Brewery Convention, or EBC, which is roughly the SRM multiplied by 2. Colors for malt are going to range anywhere from very light 2 Lovibond for a base malt all the way to over 500 degrees Lovibond for a black malt. All right, that is all I'm going to cover on this initial topic of malt. There will be another video at some point to go into more of the actual varieties of malt which are used for brewing. I also wanted to do this video to highlight that in a couple weeks here on the 20th of June here, I will be hosting a class at the Maine Tasting Center in Wiscasset, all about malts and malty Maine beers. So if that is something that you might be interested in and want to come check out, there is a link in the description below to sign up for that class. It should be a lot of fun. It's about 90 minutes, and it's going to involve a talk like this about the basics of malting, as well as sampling of Malt I, which is the malt has been extracted to get the right flavors that we want, and then doing some beer tastings of malty beer styles. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that some of you may sign up for the class. It's filling up quickly, so make sure you get a spot. And until next time, I will see you then. Cheers.